This is about how we fight terrorism. We cannot have a convicted terrorist be told that he had 3 months to live and released and sitting in a lap of luxury for up to 10 years. That is not justice served.
Out of prison and allowed to go home to Libya to die with his family. Abdelbasit Ali Mohamed Al-Magrahi has terminal cancer. Scottish Justice Secretary Kenny MacAskill announced that he's now free.
Our justice system demands that judgment be imposed, but compassion be available. Our beliefs dictate that justice be served, but mercy be shown. It is my decision that Mr Abdelbasit Ali Mohamed Al-Magrahi, convicted in 2001 for the Lockerbie bombing, now terminally ill with prostate cancer, be released on compassionate grounds and are allowed to return to Libya to die.
The pictures the US government had hoped to avoid. If Abdelbasit al-Magrahi had to be released, the Obama administration did not want it rubbed in. This former Libyan intelligence officer was the only person convicted for the 1988 bombing of Pan Am Flight 103. More than 270 were killed, 189 of whom were American.
We have been in contact with the Scottish government indicating that we objected to this, and we thought it was a mistake.
Al-Magrahi was released on compassionate grounds by the Scottish Justice Minister on Thursday. He is said to be terminally ill with just months to live, so the decision was taken to whisk him back to Libya, where he could spend his remaining days with family. Libya and Britain signed an extradition treaty in April, paving the way for al-Magrahi's release. And the country's energy giant, British Petroleum, has already committed $1 billion to oil and gas exploration there. Almost all the country's business deals must go through Gaddafi's son Saif, seen here taking the lead in al-Magrahi's welcome home. Clayton Swisher, Al Jazeera.
The triumphant reception for the Lockerbie bomber was a direct rebuff to President Obama, who had asked that Libya place him under house arrest. And the president wasn't pleased.
What about the hero's welcome in Libya, sir?
I think it was highly objectionable.
About the hero's welcome in Libya, sir?
I think it was highly objectionable.
Our guest is Kenny MacAskill, who was until recently a Scottish Nationalist Party politician, member of the Scottish Parliament for Edinburgh Eastern, and former Cabinet Secretary for Justice in the Scottish government. The decision at the time attracted significant news coverage, engendering widespread celebration in Libya. However, his release met with a largely hostile reaction in the United States and a more equally divided reaction in Britain. Questions about the trial and its outcome continue to this day. And so perhaps we can begin by having you add anything that I may have left out in my introductory remarks.
Well, I think just maybe a point of clarification, because you talked about the hero's reception, and we're in an age of false facts. That was a false fact. I remember being in my flat watching it, and I too was perturbed because I thought, here comes a problem. And it was only when I started researching the book, I realised that there was no hero's reception. I had always been surprised because I'd listened to the British ambassador in Tripoli saying, no, there was no hero's reception. And what I found out from a former State Department official, and indeed confirmed by WikiLeaks, what happened was that there were two separate events. And Gaddafi, presumably it was Gaddafi, conjoined them through television. Because not only had we in the Scottish Government said to the Libyans, look, you've got to be respectful to the victims' families, but the State Department, through John Brennan and others, said you better be respectful to the victim's family and there better be no celebration. And what happened was that he was met by Saif Gaddafi, but the crowd scenes that we saw were in fact a separate scene, an incident that took place at Tahrir Square, the equivalent of something down at the very bottom of Manhattan, where people did not know what it was. They were celebrating something entirely different. But of course, when they were merged on TV, it made it look, and indeed Gaddafi did it himself. The only thing I have to say is, and it made me extremely cynical, David Miliband, the Foreign Secretary for Britain, knew that. President Obama knew that. Both, of course, suited their agenda to say that it was shocking and the Scots had been patsies and we had allowed this to happen. But there was no hero's reception. They agreed to a de minimis meeting. Saif Gaddafi did meet Magrahi, but the cheering scenes that you saw of crowds had no idea what they were had an idea what they were celebrating. It wasn't the release of Magrahi because they did not know it was something entirely separate. So that's the only point of clarification. The only thing I have to say is, and it made me extremely cynical, David Miliband, the Foreign Secretary for Britain, knew that. President Obama knew that. But there was no hero's reception.